Many of you have been asking for it. These are all my Amouage fragrances ranked as per December 2024. Hello, welcome back to Seldomly Often. I'm Daniel. Today we're taking fragrances and these are all the Amouages in my collection. Welcome to my 5K subscriber special. In this video, I'll be ranking all the Amouage bottles that are currently in my collection. A lot of you have been asking for this video. A lot of you have been asking for this list. I thought that a 5K subscriber special would be the perfect occasion to showcase my favorite brand ever. Before we start, I definitely want to thank each and all of you for watching, for subscribing, for liking, for commenting, and in general for being part of this amazing community. All I can say is that the overwhelming majority of the interactions that I've had in FragCom on this channel in general were all very positive, very passionate, and very excited about the past, present, and future of fragrances. This channel started somewhat as a joke, as a way to keep my fragrance buying, purchasing, and sampling under control, some way to tone down this obsession of mine. And you know what? It actually turned out to be one of my biggest passion projects of the last years. This is definitely something that has been taking up a ton of my time and effort. I do have a full-time job, I do have interest, I do have a life out of this channel. I might have to turn down the frequency of uploads. I'm thinking maybe after the channel's birthday. But nonetheless, that will come as a trade-off because you'll get increased production quality. I'll start adding B-roll, just better background, better video, better sound, better everything. So yeah, it's a work in progress, always growing. Always appreciate all your opinions, suggestions. Anything you leave in the comments is always of great value to me, so thank you for that. Thank you for being part of this absolutely wonderful journey. Okay, there's a long video ahead. We should get started. I'll be covering a total of 18 bottles, ranking them from my least favorite to my most favorite. Before we start though, a couple disclaimers. First of all, I only own bottles that I like in my collection, and this is also true for Amouage. I don't collect just for the sake of collecting. All of these Amouages I like, I wear, and I appreciate. And given the fact that I like them all, ranking them was extremely difficult. The ranking system that I'm using is just based on my opinion, on my preference. This is not only my specific preference tailored to my specific taste, but it's also specific to December 2024. So stuff might change, stuff might vary. This is not a list designed for the average user. This is not a list relying on complement factor, mass appealing, longevity, projection, or anything like that. This is only about scent profile, in my opinion, the fragrances that I like the most. Another thing to note is that I got rid of a few bottles. It was either stuff that wasn't working for me scent-wise, or it was stuff that in my current presentation, the one that I had, it wasn't really up to my standard. All my Amouage bottles are in pristine conditions, they have full box and presentation, and I really care about that aspect for this house. So if I'm missing a couple fragrances, either because I never owned them, or because I let them go for whatever reason, don't get upset, this is just my list, and I'm still open to suggestions, opinions, and recommendations. Okay, enough with the intro, let's get started. Let's start off with position 18. Once again, these are all fragrances that I really like, even down to the last one, the one that I'm going to be talking about now. At position 18, we have Fate Man. This fragrance is actually really good and I really do enjoy wearing it. The reason why it's so low, it's because it's a very complex fragrance that I have been having a lot of trouble understanding. This is one of those fragrances that I can't really wear all the time just because it's incredibly potent. It has a unique scent profile. It's very spicy, it has a ton of cumin, and it's not something that I feel completely comfortable wearing all the time. The cumin in here with the other spices create this immense desert vortex, very dry, very bold. You have to really have some courage to wear this in public. It has a very distinct type of scent profile. A lot of people say that it smells like a kitchen, smells like Indian kitchen or Indian curry. I do somewhat agree. This is probably the most culinary fragrance that I have in my collection, but nonetheless, it's absolutely incredible. I really do want to wear this more in the upcoming colder months and to bring you finally a full review. Number 17 on my list is currently the only women's fragrance that I own. This one here is Beach Hut Woman. This is discontinued. I had to grab it because I saw it at an amazing price. Also, some of you guys were recommending it. I really like this scent, and despite being heavily into marine fragrances and owning a lot of bottles, this one here is very much not redundant. It's so unique. This one smells like, well, it obviously has a distinct marine note to it, but it smells delicate. It has this delicate aura around it. It has this sandy type of a sea air around it. This is probably the most realistic marine that I have in my collection. This is not bold at all. There's no gimmick ingredient in here that really stands out when you spray it. A lot of the marine fragrances have one ingredient or a couple of ingredients that really stand out. Sometimes it's a green herbaceous ingredient, some other times it's a woody component, other times still it's like a bright citrus. This has none of that. This is very, very subtle. It smells like sea air. There's definitely a woody component in the backbone of this, some sort of a driftwood accord. It's very, very beautiful. I say that this is completely unisex. It does not lean feminine at all. This smells like the beach in winter, and I really can't wait to wear this a little bit more as the temperatures rise. Number 16 is Enclave. This fragrance is the one that started my channel. This one here is the first fragrance I ever reviewed. That review hasn't aged well just because of the production quality. It was kind of like a test. I really didn't cover many details in that review, and actually a lot of my thoughts on this fragrance have changed. They haven't changed for worse, by all means. I'm not getting used to or disliking this fragrance. I actually really like it. It's still one of my favorite fragrances in my collection, and being at the tail end of this Amouage list doesn't really mean much because I really do love all my Amouages. This fragrance is absolutely beautiful. Every time I smell it, that mint note really gets me. It's so unique. I have no other fragrance that smells exactly like this. The mint in here is a little bit chemical. It's a little bit synthetic. It kind of smells like toothpaste or chewing gum. But it's the combination of that specific mint with an ambery, warm incense note that creates this beautiful dichotomy, this beautiful contrast. This is one of the most up and down fragrances that I ever had. And it sparked my first review because I was completely wowed by the effect that this had. It keeps bouncing around from the freshness to the warmth to the freshness again. It's an absolute roller coaster of fragrance. Absolutely beautiful. This to me is one of the few Amouages that is a 4-season wear. It's an absolutely beautiful scent, mass appealing. It could even be your signature scent. The performance on this is absolutely nuclear, as most Amouages go. If you like mint, if you like the idea of a warm and fresh contrast, this fragrance is a must try in my opinion. At number 15, we have one of my most recent acquisitions. This one here is Amouage Lustre from the Essences collection. This is a beautiful, warm, very golden, very serene, elegant type of fragrance. This to me really depicts the desert as a whole, the desert in the evening. In the air, this comes across as beautiful, simple, and mass appealing. But when you get close, you really get all the complexity, all the various layers. All Amouage fragrances have this beautiful 3D special effect where you can easily deconstruct the fragrance, really pinpoint the various ingredients and the various facets. Lustre is definitely one of those fragrances. It's so rich, it has so many things going on. This has actually been a grower on me. It really took multiple wears to understand what was going on. This is actually one of the fragrances that I've been reaching most for lately. It's beautiful, it's easy to wear, but it still has a complexity to keep me interested and to keep me hooked. The Essences collections are really good fragrances. I'll be talking about the other ones soon. Next on my list at number 14 is Lyric Man. This one here is an old bottle that I got after putting out that comparison between Lyric and the other one, what was it, Dazarov. A lot of you guys commented that the old Lyric is much better, had nothing to do with the new one because I wasn't too impressed with the new Lyric Man. So I eventually got a bottle of the old Lyric. This is a 50 ml. I got it for a ridiculously low price. This I think was a 2015 bottle or something like that. It's weird because it has a plastic stamp-on cap, which is a distinct difference from the other Amouages. I even thought it was fake for a moment, but alas, these are how they came. The scent profile itself is all about rose. This is an incredibly rose-forward, rose-centric fragrance. The rose in here is not jammy, it's not juicy, it's not gourmand in any way. The rose in here is basically a very beautiful, realistic rendition of rose with supporting soapy notes. This to me smells like a soapy rose bubble bath, as some of you have put it. It's very, very potent, especially in the vintage concentration. Very elegant, very uplifting. It's not necessarily the most masculine fragrance out there. I would consider this very, very unisex despite the man denomination. I did not smell Lyric Woman, so I really can't comment on that. But this one here is one of the benchmarks for rose in my opinion, and it will stay in my collection for a very, very long time. Wow, so many bottles still to cover. We are at position 13, and my choice for this one here is Amouage King Blue. This one here is my latest Amouage acquisition. I got this from my BFF perfume buddy Nat. Thank you, Nat, as always. This is a really interesting fragrance. I really grown to like it. I first featured this in my first impression comparison video where I compared this to Leighton Exclusive. I still think that video is valid as far as opinions and impression go, but I have to say that I've grown to like this fragrance more and more. I've used up that sample in the video. I then got another sample, and this is again one of those growers for me. I initially was very put off by the strong barnyardy oud in here, and the combination of the oud and the fresh citruses, which initially I wasn't even getting, was really strange. But then the more I wore it, the more I kept at it, the more this fragrance really kind of won me over. And now it's one of the fragrances that I've actually been wearing the most lately. It's very beautiful, very bold. This is not necessarily something that is office friendly. I've been told straight up that this smells like a stable, that it smells like your hands after you've been handling a horse's saddle. It's a very interesting fragrance. I'm not necessarily sure that this represents the future of Amouage, but this is not the easy to wear, mass appealing beast that a lot of people say it is. This is very funky. It's very hard to wear, I find still, despite me liking it a lot, but I still would struggle wearing this at the office. Your mileage may vary. King Blue is a beast of a performer. I think it's worth trying out. Okay, we are at number 12. I think I messed up the last number for King Blue, but nonetheless, this comes after King Blue in terms of preference. This is another one of my latest acquisitions from the Essences collection. This is Amouage Outlands. In my unboxing and first impression for Outlands, I have to say that I wasn't too impressed with this fragrance. It initially came across as a little bit chaotic, as a little bit messy, and I still, in a way, stand by that feeling. It has a weird contrast between citruses and a very strong patchouli note that comes across as earthy, dry, and very dark. At the bottom of this very dark patchouli, you can find supporting animalic notes such as oud, such as ambergris, but they don't really come across as identifiable. They really just kind of like elevate this patchouli and make it a little bit more funky and interesting. Again, it's all about the contrast between those top citruses and the very dark, earthy, chocolatey type of patchouli. This is a very interesting scent. Again, I have given it many wears now. I do really like it. I do really enjoy it. But despite the fact that I'm enjoying wearing this a lot, because it's also very potent, very present, very enveloping, very exciting. This is an exciting scent. It doesn't really have a lot of a narrative factor to me. It doesn't really give me any sort of image. And I feel that this is very similar to a lot of the other Amouage Essences collection. They're very safe in construction. This one here is not necessarily safe because it's a little bit off the beaten path as far as concept and execution goes. I would say that this is an easy fragrance to like if you're into bold fragrances, if you're into bold notes in general, but nonetheless, I don't think that these essences, all of them, are worth the asking price. There's that whole gimmick factor with the aging in the sandalwood chips, which I'm not going to cover. Ultimately, I'm really happy I have all three. I really enjoy wearing them, and I do suggest that you get the discovery kit or even the travel sizes to check them out. At number 11, we have one of the fragrances that I already talked a lot about. This one here is Figment Man. It's a beautiful, abstract, narrative, incredibly complex rendition of a forest floor. This smells weird. It's very bold. It smells acidic. It smells pissy. It's incredibly challenging. There's a musky, musty, moldy component that really brings you down to the ground, literally, and it brings you into these undiscovered facets of life. In my review, I described the scent smelling like a miniature insect world, something that you would find in one of those BBC documentaries filmed in macro mode. This is an incredibly evocative scent. This is definitely not something that is designed for everyday use, number one, because it's so challenging and weird. Second of all, because it's so narrative and transforming, almost to a fatiguing degree. But hey, if you have a chance to try out this absolutely beautiful discontinued fragrance, you really should, because it really takes you on a trip. This is really far from being one of your smell good fragrances, so wear with caution, especially around people. Okay, we're finally almost halfway. We're at number 10, and this one here is Reflection 45. This fragrance is one of the more popular fragrances from the Amouage lineup. It has incredibly high marks overall online. This is very pleasing, very mass appealing. It's considered one of the best men's fragrances of all time. I really do have to agree in all those regards. This is very beautiful, very wearable, very elegant. This is still probably the only fragrance that I would choose if I had to narrow down my fragrance collection down to one. It's so versatile. You can wear it in any situation, in any climate. It's gorgeous, it's unique, it's complex, it has a ton of layers to it. It's such a beautiful, well thought out concoction, and I can totally see all the praise this gets. The reason why this is at number 10 and not further up the line is because it's not super interesting to me, meaning it's a beautiful scent, yes, but it doesn't really trigger me, it doesn't really excite me as many other Amouage do. This to me is a lot more of a safer choice, is a lot more of a daily wear type fragrance, and this is arguably one of the best signature scents out there. And if you know me, I'm more into the bold, the complex, the interesting. I want to be stimulated on a sensorial level. This one here is a little bit lacking in that department. It's gorgeous, I'll keep it forever, but alas, it's not my favorite. In the meantime, I just checked, you might have noticed before me, it appears that my background light has died, I'll have to replace that, but nonetheless, we move up the ranking with our next Amouage. The next fragrance on my list is number 9, and it's my favorite of the Essences collection, Reason. This has been another one of those fragrances that really has grown on me. Every time I spray it, every time I give it a full wear, I discover new facets of it. It's beautiful, it's complex, very, very subtle in its scent profile, but still strong and very detectable. This is absolutely not the skin scent people are talking about. This is an incredibly potent fragrance. This fragrance is all about creamy, clean woods with a green note in there. The green note specifically is this anise, licorice type of thing. And in the opening, this fragrance really smells like some sort of a chai latte or tea. It's so smooth, so enveloping, so cuddly in a way. The dry down is where this fragrance really surprised me because the transition top to bottom is massive. In the dry down, you get a ton of smoky incense. This fragrance completely changes. It becomes rich, it becomes dense, almost pungent to a degree. Beautiful, dark, smoky incense. The anise note really comes into its own and becomes the protagonist of the scent. In a way, the dry down of this kind of reminds me of Royal Tobacco. This is the more elegant, the more easier to wear brother of Royal Tobacco. Beautiful, it's complex. Every time I wear it again, I get multiple new facets. It's a beautiful narrative scent exploration that really brings me on a trip every time I wear it. We are above halfway, and my number 8 choice for this ranking is Jubilation 40. This is an incredible fragrance. I love it so much. I've been wearing it a lot. In the summer, in the fall, in the spring, basically always. This is my default bold, smell rich type of fragrance. This is the thing that I reach for when elegance is paramount. This is such a beautiful, complex, narrative fragrance that really encapsulates Amouage as a brand. This smells like the desert, it smells like Middle East, it smells like royalty. I already covered this in a full review, and I mentioned that this smells like a desert prince riding in the desert atop his beautiful stallion at warp speed. Everything in this fragrance brings you to the beautiful, romantic, warm imagery. The opening is to die for. There's this beautiful blackberry jam type of accord. The dry down is incredible. It goes into this very, very dry incense, very dark, complex scent. It's so enveloping, it's so beautiful. A lot of the reviewers bash the performance of this, saying that it wears too light, saying that it doesn't project. This is a very dense, oily fragrance that really performs best when you have a lot of heat in the skin. This to me is one of the best summer night type of fragrances out there. All right, we're at position number 7. This one here is an absolute banger. We're talking about Myth Man. This one here is an incredibly narrative fragrance, so romantic, so melancholic. This beautiful narrative abstract fragrance to me is all about the story of death. Basically from the opening, which is very, very challenging and pissy, you get kind of like the initial shock of death, and then it becomes more real, it becomes more subtle. Everything sinks in and death progresses as fact. It becomes more of a memory. The wear experience for this is probably one of the more unique I have ever experienced. This is an absolute masterpiece of narration, of melancholy, and of romanticism. Despite the scent being so narrative and transitioning once again to almost a fatiguing degree, this still retains a level of wearability because it's very beautiful. It's just very well put together. It's so complex. This to me is peak niche fragrance and really represents what can be done in the world of perfumery. These last 6 fragrances were incredibly difficult to rank. My preference really comes down to a day-to-day type feeling, but nonetheless, I really like and cherish them all, and they have a special place in my heart. Number 6 on the list is Gold Man. Gold Man is one of those fragrances that I've discovered late. I have to admit, I got this, 3-4 months ago. It's one of the most intense, beautiful, and elegant fragrances I have ever worn. This is one of the most beautiful combinations of being hyper elegant on one side and incredibly animalic on the others. The elegance aspect of this is given by the beautiful white floral concoction. This is pretty much a jasmine scent first and foremost, but the animalic note in this is definitely what sells the fragrance to me. The civet in here is absolutely massive. This smells so incredibly dirty that it actually makes me self-conscious. And differently from other animalic fragrances that I have, this dirtiness is a lot more serious. There's no joking around. This is a very elegant, serious scent. It's so hard to even wrap your mind around this because it's so elegant that it's almost unwearable. This fragrance is so bold, bossy, and elegant that makes it really hard for me to wear it. Also because it's incredibly potent and powerful. 2 sprays on this fill a room, they last for days. It's insanely potent. I really like it. It has almost an addictive type of quality to it. I can't really wear this in public just because I don't have the guts for it yet, or maybe because I really haven't found the right situation to pull this off. This is Amouage's first fragrance. It's a little bit vintagey, but if you're into that classic style of approach, if you're into a bold, powerful, masculine fragrance, you have to give this masterpiece a try for sure. Top 5. I hope you're surviving this. My 5th position is for Silver Oud. This fragrance, let me tell you, this is probably one of my most favorite fragrances in my collection. It's an absolutely gorgeous, smooth, dark, rich concoction that really brings a smile to my face every time. This to me is like the perfect oud fragrance. Not because it's the most realistic, not because it's the most stinky, but it's the oud type that I like the most. I've smelled many. A lot of them vary a lot. Some of them are very burnt and smoky. Some others are very animalic and barnyardy. This to me strikes straight in the middle. The supporting notes here make it incredibly beautiful, incredibly elegant, and super wearable, at least in my opinion. Yes, it is an animalic scent. Yes, it is a little bit stinky. But overall, in the air, I think that this has a mystique that is almost second to none. This to me is the ultimate representation of a bass-heavy scent. It's so droney, so bassy, so thick. It has a little bit of a sweet aspect, but this is far from being a gourmand. This is oily. It lasts basically forever. I get up to 24 to 48 hours of wear on this. It's incredible. The scent profile, the sillage, everything about this is so invigorating, so relaxing at the same time. This really triggers my senses in the way very few fragrances do. On the polar opposite, scent profile wise, we have number 4. This one here is Beach Hut Man. Beach Hut Man, I've talked about extensively in a full review. This one here is one of the most beautiful, fresh, invigorating scents on the market. There's something about this fragrance that almost gives me a jolt of caffeine type of energy boost every time I smell it. It's beautiful, it's invigorating. It's supposed to be representing a beach hut, but it's very far from your typical beach summer fragrance. This to me smells a lot more like a hut in the jungle. There's an incredibly strong natural mint note in here, which is beautiful. It's balsamic, it's invigorating. The rest of the fragrance is just as green, just as fresh. The dry down for this is beautiful, woody, almost incensey. It has a little bit of a sweet type nuance to it, but this overall is very manly, very dry, very powerful. This is probably one of the more powerful fresh fragrances that I've ever tried. 2 sprays of this last all day. This is an absolute keeper, and I will probably be keeping this for the rest of my life because going 2 sprays at a time, this will never finish. We're finally at my top 3. These could really be in any order. In 3rd position, I chose Overture Man. This fragrance is another one of those fragrances that are, to me, almost perfect. This to me is once again a beautiful, elegant, manly fragrance that is surprisingly wearable considering the notes that are in it. I'm wearing this as my scent of the day, by the way. It's absolutely incredible. This smells like nothing else on the market. The opening has this beautiful, bitter, juicy grapefruit combined with this incredibly potent cumin note. The cumin in here definitely comes across as a little bit BO smelling, and it's the most challenging aspect of this fragrance. As I covered in my full review, this is a highly complex, highly evolving type of fragrance with a lot to it. Has a lot of sweet accords that come and go. The spices intertwine. There's a leathery aspect in here. There are even more animalic notes in the bottom. The beautiful complexity of this, combined with its surprisingly wearable scent profile, makes this basically a must-have for any type of niche lover, any type of Amouage lover. This is one of the more beautiful creations from the house and one of the best beautiful departing love letters that a creative director can give. This was Christopher Chong's last fragrance, and it's an absolute masterpiece for any Amouage fan, anyone that likes complex, beautiful, rich, well-done perfumery. Okay, we're down to the last two, and I'm probably guessing that you guys know what I'm talking about. My silver medal goes to Amouage Royal Tobacco. This one here is, my God, one of my favorite fragrances in my collection, hands down. It's so beautiful, it's so potent, it's so particular. Every time I smell this, my pupils dilate. It's so incredibly exciting. This is the most beautiful thing about this fragrance. It's just so exciting and overwhelming. I'm a huge fan of the licorice opening of this. The tobacco note in here is so realistic. It smells like pipe tobacco. It's smoky, and smoky to a degree where it's really difficult to describe. It's almost chokingly smoky. It's dark, it's rich, it's resinous, it's sticky. It feels like tar. It feels like the tar from like burnt cigarettes, burnt tobacco. Some say that it smells like an ashtray. I kind of get that, but it's not as bitter. There's also a sweet component in here which really wraps the whole thing together, really makes it super wearable. This fragrance lasts absolutely forever. It's a powerhouse. It keeps radiating off the skin, keeps enveloping you in this beautiful smoky licorice type of thing. It's one of my favorite fragrances ever. It's an absolute masterpiece. I'm so happy to own a bottle of this. This is one of the most, again, exciting fragrances I own. If I'm ever feeling down, if I'm ever feeling uninspired, I just grab this. I even just smell the atomizer and oh my God, this is so good. I like this so much. If you like tobacco, if you like deep dark scents, if you like smoky, this is an absolute must try. Beautiful masterpiece by Cécile Zarogan. My number one spot was an incredibly difficult scent to choose. I chose this, not necessarily because of the scent profile, although I absolutely love it, but because to me, this really represents Amouage. This really is what started Amouage for me, or rather, a version of this. My number one spot goes to Interlude 53. Yes, I only got this bottle relatively recently. I only acquired it at the start of summer, but I'm very familiar with Interlude, Interlude Woman, and this to me represents the whole family. I started my Amouage journey with Interlude, and to me 53 represents the pinnacle of the Interlude family. It's an incredible scent. It's exciting, it's beautiful, it's deep, it's rich, it's complex, it's narrative. It really has everything. This is one of my favorite scents ever, and this would probably fall into a top 3 if I ever had to reduce to that number. It's really hard for me to explain Interlude. I've covered the normal version in an in-depth video. 53 to me takes the Interlude DNA, takes the Interlude concept and brings it up a couple notches. It's very similar to the normal one, but it's smoother, it's richer, it's deeper, and it's just a little bit better in every little facet. To me, this is like, again, the perfect evolution. This to me is also one of those fragrances that perfectly represents Amouage as a whole, represents Amouage as a concept. It's daring, it's difficult to wear, but at the same time, it's so friendly and appealing once you get to know it. It has this beautiful, resinous, complex, transitioning, smoky aspect to it. It starts out with this very bold, polarizing oregano note, which to me is actually very pleasing. It doesn't smell like food at all. But then again, it dries down to this very sweet, enveloping, almost choking smoke. It's a very different smoke aspect than Royal Tobacco. They're absolutely not redundant. This has also a lot in common with Silver Oud, or rather Silver Oud with this. The oudi component, the oudi type, is also present in Interlude. The very deep dry down is not too dissimilar from Silver Oud. Again, it's smoky, it's rich, it's complex. I keep repeating myself because I really can't get over how good this scent is. It's also incredibly long lasting. This is a 24-hour fragrance. You really have to commit to this sort of smell. It stains clothes, it stays on clothes basically forever. So yeah, it's not your usual day-to-day smell good type of fragrance. It's an absolute marvel of perfumery, a milestone in perfumery. I'll always keep this close to my heart because it really helped start this whole passion towards fragrances, and it really helped me explore and understand what can be done with perfumery. This is absolutely mind-blowing, especially if you're coming from the designer realm. I would say that everyone out there that is interested in fragrance should get their nose on Interlude. You'll be floored. It's absolutely incredible. You might not like it, but you'll probably still appreciate it. Okay, we're done with the ranking of Amouage. I really hope you appreciated this video. It has been a very long, difficult, tiring video to record, but you guys are totally worth it. 5,000 subscribers, I can hardly believe it. I'm not really a guy that looks at numbers. I don't really aspire to any specific number. I don't care. To me, this is a passion project. I have nothing to gain. This is not meant to be my business or to replace my job. This is just me talking about my fragrance journey with you guys. I'm just really surprised that all of you are tuning in, commenting, and just viewing my videos. It's really flattering, really encouraging, and will probably keep me going for a very long time. Thank you so much for watching. I really, really mean it. Thank you so much for being on this journey with me. A lot more videos to come, a lot more reviews, many more formats to come. Yes, it's in continuous evolution. So if you have any comments, suggestions, opinions, as always, leave it down below in the comments. I always reply. Thanks again. I really do appreciate all of this. See you in the next one. Cheers.